Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to another broadcast of the High Net Worth Investors Guide. And this is a program that really seeks to give a lot of guidance to business owners and rising stars in business. So, today we have a number of dynamic personalities in the studio to support me in today's conversation. I must acknowledge one of the great thought leaders in the personal branding arena, and his name is Grant Maguire. Maguire.
McGaw,
He
that's
is
good.
well, good. He has represented Fortune 500 companies, and he has a wealth of knowledge in personal branding. I also have with me today Paul Whitehouse, and Paul Whitehouse is also a very strong personality in finance. He has worked with multiple of businesses, helping them to access the much needed capital to grow and scale. And so he will also talk with us today about that. I also have Andrew, and Andrew is a digital marketing specialist. He also has a small company, and he has worked with multiple businesses, helping them to optimize their business success using his skill sets. And those who do not know me, I wear many hats, but the hat I normally talk a lot about is I'm an author of multiple books. One of my last book is titled Master the Sales Communication Process. And if you're in business and intend to get into business, I do encourage you to get a copy of that book. To get a copy of that book, you just need to go to the website, which is the bestsellerportal.org, and tap on products, go to ebooks, and once you get to ebooks, you would see 11 volumes of that book, Master the Sales Communication Process, there for you. It's an audio book, so you can plug it in, you can listen to it, and have a lot of information for yourself. With that being said, I want to take the opportunity to ask each of my panelists to give a short introduction to themselves. I'm going to start with Grant, and then I'm going to come over to Paul, and then Andrew. On to you, Grant.
Oh, well, thank you very much for being here this Saturday afternoon. I am Grant McGaw. That's pronounced McGaw. Like if you were in Omaha, Nebraska, that's where I'm originally from. But I do reside in Miami, Florida. And I've been in business development and information technology for over 25 years. I've worked for a number of different Fortune 500 companies and have been exposed to a lot of brand, a lot of marketing, a lot of people that are doing it right and a lot of people that are doing it wrong. And the thing that really has come forward, especially in the world of business development, in sales in general, in account management, is personal branding. Because of this digital environment that we are in now, most likely people will first look you up on a platform such as social media, or they're looking at you from Google, and you have to look at what story are you telling about yourself before you even get into the room. And even before someone begins to think about products, think about services, and you think about your company, the first thing again that they're going to do is look you up via social media. They're going to look and see what's out there with their, whether it's in a search engine or things like that. And you have to ask yourself, what story am I telling before anyone asks me any question whatsoever? So we'll talk about a little bit about that today on your show. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks for that introduction, Grant. Paul?
Yeah, hi everybody. Uh, Thank you, Gary, for the show. Grant, Andrew, it's always excellent to hang out with you guys. And my name's Paul Whitehouse. I'm one of two owners of Patriot Business Finance Consultants. And to really simplify it, what we help you do is get capital for your business. And that comes in a lot of different forms, lots of different forms. I mean, business financing. What's a business loan? A business loan covers all assets of your business, your accounts receivable, your equipment, and your real estate, and whatever other assets might be pledged. Business financing is financing a piece of equipment or buying real estate, something that's not complete. It's not separate from the complete collateralization of your business. So we can help you with both of those aspects. Equipment financing through equipment leasing, that's the best way to own equipment. Real estate financing, commercial and investment properties. Factoring, which is a cash flow product. PO financing, raising capital. When you hear raising capital, whoever's doing it for you, make sure that the words Securities and Exchange Commission compliant are attached to that, because that's very important. There's only one legal way to do it, and we can help you with all of those things that you would need for your business, plus more, plus free, friendly advice. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that share, Paul and Andrew.
Yes, hi everyone. Good to see you guys again. Also in digital marketing, just like Grant mentioned, founder of a company called Digital World Connections. I'm also a partner of another agency known as Click. What we do is we're a full service marketing firm doing everything and anything from social media to video production to running ads to writing blogs, the whole nine yards for digital. And, just as Grant mentioned, it is the most important currency moving forward. And what we found was that a lot of people are having a hard time understanding this. So we started offering a lot of master classes to educate and fill this gap in the marketing space. And then we also do service, a plethora of different clients from all different industries as well, managing their entire marketing strategies.
All right, thank you. What I want us to do, since we have a number of experts on board in terms of personal and corporate branding, is to begin to give some definitions to what personal branding is and corporate branding. I know we all may go about giving different perspective in terms of what definition represents. So I'll give a first definition, then I will also ask Paul to perhaps chime in to help us to understand how his financial instruments may be able to help businesses to access that capital to grow and scale, either in personal branding or in corporate branding. Now, one of the things I asked myself many, many years ago is what exactly is personal branding? And what I have been able to define is that strong brands is all about four things: design, impact, connection, and influence. And I'm going to briefly explain what that means to me. Whether the brand is a personal brand or a corporate brand, in my context, it must be a strong MVO, a strong brand. And strong brand means many things. In the context of being a strong MVO, I'm talking about it must be a strong minimum viable offer, most viable offer, or maximum viable offer, but there must be a strong design there. That design, secondly, must be aligned. It must be able to make impact. And for the brand itself, whether personal or corporate, to make impact, it must be aligned to the ideal client. And that alignment only takes place when the brand specialist really takes the time to understand people based on multiple data points. For me, personal branding is also about connecting with people. And that is all about relationship building. And as an influencer, as a personal brand specialist, if you're not able to build out that healthy relationship with your audience, I think it's going to undermine you and your personal branding. The fourth and final aspect, I think, in building a strong brand, it's about influence. In this context, I define influence as being the ability to inspire predictable outcome. And why am I saying this? You're developing a corporate or personal brand and you want it to work. The ability to know it's going to work is if you go through some of those things that I've just identified. It's a strong brand, it's aligned to people, You have relationship with people, and with these three things working together, the predictable outcome that you want is either sales or some other response from them. This, in my context, to me, is how strong personal brand can work. That's my definition. Everyone don't have to agree with it, but I would love to have your take on, in your experience, how would you go about defining personal branding?
Is that a question
I'm
for
going to start
everybody or
you
a question
for
for Paul?
everybody, but I'm going to for everyone, but I'm going to start with you, Grant.
Well, that's good. I will tell it like this from a story perspective. What is personal branding? It's almost like this. How do you define yourself? Because that's what we're really talking about, and in what you're doing as far as in endeavor. In my world of sales and account management and corporations and building relationships between different entities, what I have found is that the traditional way of doing things has changed. Before, you would maybe send an email, maybe you would do a phone call, or you would do some kind of in-house networking to create conversation with the desired prospect. And because everyone is doing that same playbook, it's not, something that is leveraged directly for you. You have to ask yourself, and I had to ask myself this: how do I differentiate myself? What can I leverage within my own scope that will create opportunity for me beyond the traditional ways of reaching out? Personal branding became that vehicle because I was able to tell my story. People are interested not in just what you do, but why you do it. And being able to tell that story when you're not in the room, when you're not there. So when someone again is looking you up via social media, mobile computing has gone skyrocketed over the last 10 or 15 years. I understood that. How am I going to tell my story in front of as many people as I need to, or the right people, the target audience, without even developing my own brand? I could not depend on the corporate brand because they're saying, you know what? I can Google information on your widget or your service or what you might be doing, but I more or less want to deal with somebody or talk to somebody that I like, that I trust, and that I can get knowledge and information from than just getting it from generic. So in my business, I understood that you can get general information from anybody, but insight is not a commodity. And I needed to be able to do that effectively by showing my charisma, by showing my competence, showing my results that I'm able to get things done. And then so my personal brand becomes bigger than my business brand. Think of someone like Elon Musk. Most people know Elon Musk more than they know Tesla or PayPal or SpaceX. Think about Oprah Winfrey. Her brand is bigger than OWN, for instance. So you think of Jeff Bezos, his brand is bigger than just Amazon. So the ability to personally brand yourself gives you key levers when it comes to career development, business development, that if, as you know, in your history or your future, there's going to be morphs and change along the way. You're not always going to be associated with a particular business brand or a particular career brand. So you have to be able to stand on your own brand that you have developed, you have curated, that you have created, that you've developed, and you've built specifically for yourself. That's how I look at that.
Thanks for that share, my friend. I love you made a number of points that was great, but the last part that you would have said to be coincide 101% that what I would have said, you have to be able to build your personal brand, which ties back that that brand must be strong. Whatever brand you're going to be building for yourself, it must be strong and it must be relevant to the market. All right, it must be relevant to the market. Once you know it's relevant to the market, you have to go out and build that relationship. You got to go connect with people. You got to let people know that this is my brand. and this is how it's going to help you. And I think with all of that put together, once you do a good job in building that strong brand, ensuring that it's aligned to people, and you're building relationship, you can come close to predictable outcome. So I do love what you would have said. Um, you made some other great points which I like. Um, Building your personal brand also, it's about how you yourself want to be known, liked, and trust. The beauty is that you have control over this. But very often you find that uh, much emphasis is not placed in personal branding. And I do believe it can add significant weight to the corporate image itself. But we're going to look at that in a few, once time permit. Andrew, I would love to hear your take on the same question.
Well, I mean, there's not that much disagreement. I mean, I think everything what Grant said is correct. I mean, I also we talked about this. I think it was Thursday, that I think the personal brand is like the next best business model for anything you're gonna start, because if people can know you, they like you, and they trust you, almost any product. And the surprising thing is, even if the product I feel like isn't that great, people will still be inclined to buy it, because everyone has a fear of missing out on the trend, right? And if you can become that influence promoting something, people will, they're just going to buy. It's just a natural human instinct to actually go and not be part of that, be part of that trend. um, and I advocated for almost all types of brands out there. It'll almost a warm feeling, whether it's a brand like manufacturing. Even if you showcase who's in that team, that is a much warmer approach. And also, if you're like, doing a marketing company like me, like I'd still showcase who they are dealing with, who would be behind that type of brand. So I'm so pro for it. I'm so for it. And Grant, I want to know an opinion, because people always people ask the question, what makes you different in business? Now, I have my own opinion towards that question, and I just, since you're in marketing, I want to know your thoughts on it. So, since most industries are saturated nowadays, right? There's too much of everyone doing the same thing. I
Mhm.
think that question, what makes you different? I feel like personally, it's not valuable anymore. Why? Because number one, I think people misjudge the meaning of that question. Like, for example, in my company, the difference that I have is I write ebooks. That's the only difference that I can tell you. Now, if there's a client coming to me asking for a service, my difference doesn't even matter to them, because that's
Mhm.
not what they were looking for, right? And I also think three qualities, if you can succeed in those three, that can be the best answer to as to what makes you different. Like, for example, it's not about it's not about who you know, it's actually about who knows you and what you do, right? That's where the personal brand comes in. And
Mhm.
number two, simply, is your experience. Again, you can showcase that through your own brand building. And number three, it's your personality and your confidence, as you said, or your charisma, your confidence, your energy. Again, that can be shown through personal brand. And I feel like if someone answers that question by saying they are best at those three things, I think that can be the only answer as to why someone could be different. Of course, there are some differences. Of course, I do acknowledge that. But like in an industry like real estate, for example, there's so many agents doing the exact same thing, and they're not focused on that personal brand part. All they say is, I'm 24/7, I'm hardworking. I mean, everyone is. I mean, that's not going to make you stand out because you're 24/7 with your client, right? So I mean, I don't know what your opinion on that answer is. I get asked it all the time, so that's always my answer when people ask
I
me.
love that question. And what you said is very important, because how do you get out of the commoditized zone? And if you only use buzzwords to define yourself, it's not going to get it done. What people are interested in when you talk about your personal brand is your personal story. What is your story? Why are you selling real estate? Is really what I want to understand. I understand what real estate the business is. I understand there are services that you may provide that are better, or maybe not as widely done as other services. But that's not why I'm tuning into you. I'm tuning into you as an individual.
Right.
I want to know what gets you up at night. What is your movement? What is your complete why, or why this is important to you? And is that relevant, or is it exuded and visible in the brand that you put out there for other
Right.
people? When people tune in to me, they're going to find out, hey, Grant McGaw is a healthcare advocate. I can see that. That doesn't mean I'm a doctor. It doesn't mean I'm a provider of healthcare. I am not, but I am an advocate for healthcare. And I advocate for it on a number of different levels through my podcast, through my TV series, and that I'm highlighting what people are doing because it's important to me. The service I can provide goes along the lines of business and technology, goes along the lines of branding, goes along the marketing. But I'm not talking about all those things, right? I'm talking to the individual. Why are they doing what they're doing? Why that's important? What is your passion? That is what's missing. Because if I tune in to Gary Thompson, I want to be able to see, why is Gary doing this live show on Saturday at 2 p.m.? What is he trying to get out of this? Who is he trying to influence with this? And how can I then take that and like, wow, you know what? What he's doing is important. He's talking about personal branding, and he's talking about personal branding for other people, because everybody, no matter who you are, can identify you as an individual, that you have a personal brand, but how have you now made it more accessible to other people? I want to know, Andrew, I understand you're in marketing. I get that. I understand you make ebooks. Ebooks, a lot of people can make ebooks, but I don't understand why you're in marketing. I don't know, have no idea why you picked up ebook in the first place. But if you can tell that story around that, and someone can identify with you and your background and why you're doing it and what your future could look like, I'm tuning into that. I'm like, hey, that's why podcasting now is so important these days, because people can let's take off some of the corporate tapping, let's take off the title and put it over here, because you're not always going to be associated with that title. You're not going to always be associated with certain things. But if you have a belief and you have an emotional connection to that belief through other people, that's how you can create community. You can get a tribal awareness. And no matter if you're doing ebooks today and you're doing something different tomorrow, that following will stay with you. That's how I define that.
Yep. Great point. Grant, I want to reflect on something you said early on. You mentioned Oprah and what a great influence she is, because she has built up a strong personal brand. And as I reflect on that, something struck my attention almost immediately when you made that statement. And in my statement, I mentioned predictable outcome. And one of the things that I see with Oprah, anyone that sits on our program, I see this happen with Dr. Phil and so many other persons. The predictable outcome is that they become instantly recognizable, and they're able to move on from there with their own brand. And that's something that she has been able to do with her personal brand. So I'm happy that you did mention Oprah. But I want to swing the conversation a little bit now to the cost associated with personal branding. Why? Because I was recently looking at Celine Dion and Rennie. Celine Dion is one of the most iconic personality, strong personal brand. But what I recognize is that if her producer didn't have the capital to help her to get that visibility, that personal brand might have never come to light. And just let me tell you some of her story. Celine Dion, at 12 years old, she was thrust into the hands of a great man. I call him a great man, Rennie, who became her husband. But at the time that she was placed in his custody to promote her brand, he didn't have the money, all right, the cash. But he was doing some things. I heard he went to the casino, he gambled what he has to try to make some money. Later down in life, he mortgaged his house in order to project her out, publicly. And that goes to show if he didn't believe in her as a brand and was able to make the investment in that brand, the world might have never known a Celine Dion. So there's a cost associated with this. I want to start with Paul here. Paul, because I know you deal with financial instruments. In your arsenal of capital, what capital you think is available from your standpoint to help business owners? I know that to help business owners to access capital, either to do with the overall funding of businesses or with personal branding. I would like to have your take, Paul, and then I'm going to open up to Grant and Andrew to look at the capital issues in relation to personal branding.
Okay. Well, there are no specific financial programs or instruments designed to help people get money for branding or advertising, unless you do it. There are a couple of ways to do it, but there's no, usually financing requires assets or it's equity, which doesn't require assets. So if you got a business and you want to brand yourself and you want to have a advertising budget, how do you do that? You might have to come in with cash that you've saved or you've borrowed from an investor, or that's realistically the way to do it. But let's talk about a few other. We like to say guerrilla warfare, how to do it when you don't have no other way that you can see that it can be done. Okay, you have assets. You got a construction company, you got a trucking company, you're a manufacturer. It doesn't matter. You fill in the blank with the business, but you have assets. Well, money can be pulled from those assets. If you have real estate, if you have equipment that you have a low balance or a zero balance on and you own it free and clear, that's called a sale leaseback. We can take three semi trucks that you own or two bulldozers or whatever, name the equipment. It doesn't matter if it's an asset. There's a program called sale leaseback. One of our leasing companies will buy that equipment from you, pay you cash for it. Now, you need that equipment to operate your business and make money to pay back the new debt. So the equipment doesn't leave your factory. It doesn't leave you have use and access of it. And use of equipment is what makes money, not ownership. Ownership's a good thing. You want ownership, of course, but you'll get that ownership back. Just make all the payments. So, Grant, you got a construction company. You tell me you need a marketing budget. Okay. I ask you, what equipment you got free and clear? Because I don't have programs designed. A marketing budget's not an asset. I can't. The bank can't come take it back if you don't make the payments. So I ask you the question. You say, I got everything's owned free and clear. I'm doing great. I just need a marketing budget so I can double my business. Perfect. How much do you need? A couple $100,000. Okay, let's figure the math out. Looks like 3 or 4 pieces of equipment will certainly do it. We'll pull X amount of money out of that equipment, and you keep the equipment, use it to get the work done, and you now have a chunk of money. They come in, they take title to the equipment, they own it, but that's the arrangement. They own it for 3 or 4 years or whatever term you decide that you want set up to repay that debt. Make the payments, spend the money, get the advertising, build the business, increase the business, make the payments on what you pledged as an asset. You got ownership back after the payment stream is ended. That's one way to do it. And then, another way to do it is if you're doing a capital raise for a business, then if you're raising capital, you're raising debt and equity typically, or all equity. But whatever you need for that project, and if advertising is one of the things that you need, well, that's a line item. Here's what we need. Here's how much we need for that purpose. And as part of the overall capital raise, that is money that's raised that has a specific purpose, sources and uses. You have to have a use. If you're asking for money, raising money, asking for money, pledging an asset for money, you have to have a use of the money. You can't just say, I want it so I can have it. I mean, you could, but don't have a use for it. So hope that answers the question and helps everybody who's watching.
All right. Thanks for that share, Paul. So we're talking here about asset-based lending, where they're able to take out the equity from the asset and leverage the equity to raise funding.
Right.
And I think it's pretty standard because, even in cases where they're taking out, you're leveraging the asset to take out equity. Many financial company, they will still ask you for historical track record, but we'll go into all of that later on. But thanks for sharing that. Grant and Andrew, the importance of capital in personal branding and what personal branding can really do to optimize the success of any business. I would love to hear your take on that.
Man, I'd like to jump in there. First, you have to understand the purpose. I'll go back to what Connor Paul said. What is your purpose? What is the purpose of your personal brand? There is a reason why you're doing it. This is a strategy. It's a strategy, and it is to enable you to grow your business. It's around business development. And if you look at my company, Five Star BDM, which is for Brand Development Masters, when you look at that, what it's about? It's about personal branding and business development. The whole purpose of the personal brand is to develop the business, right? So when you are now going out to develop your business, whether you're going to a financial institution, to Paul's point, how are you showing up for that engagement? What does that look like? Do you have everything in order? You still have to make it visible to someone else to say, okay, I understand what you're trying to accomplish. I'm willing to help you. However you leverage your assets or leverage an investor. A lot of times I see this over and over again. We're going to have either it's a pitch competition or you're going to pitch, your idea, your business to a potential investor who's going to invest in you. And then along those line items, marketing's always got to be there. I think a lot of people make mistakes when they think about developing their business, especially from a startup perspective of what they need to do. There's a couple of things you definitely going to have to invest in. Obviously, that's going to be your business operations. You're going to then have to understand your financial modeling. But I guarantee you have to understand marketing. A lot of times people put marketing on the back burner. That is a mistake. If you don't develop your audience, you don't develop your customer base, you don't develop your story, you're not going to have much operations in order to execute on your business plan. So it's very, very important to understand the purpose of the personal brand is to feed into the business development of your company to help you to succeed. That's how I see things.
Can I just throw one thing in there, Gary, to piggyback on what Grant said?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Okay. Business development team and a sales team. And to draw attention to both of those, you need marketing, but you specifically need personal branding if you want to stand out. They're looking at 100 people. You want to pop up on the radar. So personal branding makes you pop up on the radar.
100%.
Yeah. And Grant, you said a lot, you're going to spend so much time building out the brand, but then if you are not visible, it doesn't make sense. And we have a sequence of things that we talk about. You must have visibility and reach, because very often visibility doesn't always convert in reaching the ideal client. And then when you reach the ideal client, you want to insert that you're making impact, because from making impact, you're able to convert into paying clients. So I love the points that you would have made. Andrew, what are your take on this?
Yep, I agree. I think it's the most I think marketing is the most important thing in a business. I mean, especially when it's a startup, for example, if you want to know if your product or idea works, you have to market it before you even have the product to see if there's even an interest out there. Because what if you do all this hard work and find out no one is willing to buy this? You just wasted months, years, time, and more importantly, time. That's one. Secondly, the other thing I tell people is if whether marketing is digital or physical marketing, whatnot, right? Where are your leads going to come from? I mean, there's really only a few places. Even if you do cold calling, for example, right? So, an outreach method, they will likely be checking your profiles, your accounts to see if you even have any credibility. So there's marketing, for example, there. If you get referrals, another concept there, referrals are network marketing. And it goes back to the same term. Marketing is the most important thing because they know you because you put yourself out there in the first place. And then a third one, which is more of a misconception. I hear business owners always say, oh, my business is doing so well, I don't need to do marketing right now. Now, here's the problem with that. First of all, I've never talked to a business owner the size of Starbucks. That's $1 billion company, right? And I would always tell them, like, okay, since you've said you don't need marketing, why is Starbucks, a company making billions of dollars a quarter, way more than you are, still doing email campaigns, still doing ads, because they're always out there in front of you. And then they're always silent when they hear that because they know I have a point there, right? So I think that is what Grant said is 100% correct. And then when you add the element of personal brand, is very it's just going to make you stand out. And also, I think what connects that is the whole idea of the sales, because marketing's only opportunity, the only job for marketing is to give you an opportunity for it's just to give you a lead. Whatever you do with your lead is a sales thing now. So as long as if you go all in on your marketing, you have to go all in on your sales as well, because that sale is what's going to make you the money. The marketing gives you the opportunity to do that. It gives you the spark. But if you don't have a great sales process, if you're not leveraging automation on your CRMs, you're not converting anything from marketing, and you're not allowed to blame marketing for that, because that's a sales problem. It's not a marketing problem. So I like to always tie in those two at the very end and mention that if you're going to do marketing, you got to do sales, and if you're going to do sales, you have to do marketing first. So they all tie back and forth to each other.
Gary, can I throw one more thing? I don't mean to keep jumping in, but
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
it's coming to my mind, man. Once, just what Andrew just said, man. Once it gets noticed, once a customer calls you, and once it gets to that salesperson should be personally branded, marked. They have to. Every salesperson in an organization should adopt this mindset. I need my personal brand. Because when they pick up the phone or make that call to the potential client, they got to stand out. They got to be a blip on the radar amongst the 20 people that they've already spoken with. Or if you're the fourth or fifth person they called, you need them to stop calling people. Everybody else was boring. Everybody else didn't stand out. Now, boom, there you are. Boom. Because you were able to take that as a salesperson and understand the concept of personal branding. I've got to close this deal.
Definitely is a great point. And I think it was last week we look at this also, and think about it, and Paul, you made a very strong point. Think about it, that your sales force, they have a strong personal brand. So they are known, they are liked, and they are trusted, and they are representing your corporate brand. You don't have to do much sales there because they are known, they are liked, they are trusted, that people are now willing to respond to them. But I want to look at something that I've recognized. Very often, and we talk about this on this program a lot, sometimes we hear words, but sometimes the words can be very abstract. And one example is the term marketing. I do believe that to the average rising star in marketing, when they hear the term marketing, it's not very clear to them what the entire ecosystem of marketing represents. Later on today, I should upload a program that is talking briefly about that. And what I said is that marketing is the brain of success. It's the brain of every business. And let me just, try to define this a little bit. In the program that we're going to be rolling out over the next few days, it's going to help you to really understand marketing from 4 standpoints. Marketing is about collecting data, and there's where the research comes in. Marketing is where that's going to tell you who is your target market, what are their needs, where they're located, how to innovate products and services to reach them. It's about collecting that data. It's about analyzing that data. It's about applying yourself using that data, because you don't innovate products and services necessarily before you understand that there's a need for it. And then you have the last part of it where we call data mitigation. And from my studies and practice of marketing, it represents all of this. All right. And I think that sometimes the audience, perhaps this might be a reason why people are not seeing the real importance of marketing. And it is surprising that it's sometimes that even trivialize marketing and sale. And if you don't have marketing and sale, it's like if you're doing business and you have a blindfold over your eyes, you don't fully understand what you're doing, but you're doing business. Do you subscribe to that same belief, my friends?
I do. I'm glad you brought that. Here's the problem. A lot of times in the business landscape is how do you, and I'm sure Paul can identify with this, and Andrew, how do you quantify the investment in marketing? What is my ROI? What is my physical result for marketing? And it's sometimes people find that hard to see. Like if I spend $1 here, where's my $3 back? And this is where the rubber meets the road. And I want people to understand this, because in the days where you were just doing what I call physical marketing, you're doing your emailing and you're knocking on doors and you put flyers and all that kind of stuff, it's very hard to quantify that. However, in digital marketing, it's a different beast. You can see that dollar. You know what? I spent $1 on this particular campaign, and I can see the amount of money that it triggered back, especially if you have any kind of e-commerce site. It's very physical. It's very visible. It's very quantifiable. What people look for, especially in the business world, they want to look at predictable revenue. They want to look at, what's your monthly reoccurring revenue? What are your subscription rates? All this comes back to digital marketing. If you do not have a digital marketing strategy or a platform, get one. If you look at where the Fortune 500 companies are today, who are they? What are they? They are digital behemoths. Your Airbnb, your Amazons, you can go on and on and on. Like, what do? They don't even own hotels, but they own the business for hospitality. How do they do that? They have a digital platform that worked, I would say geniusly for what they're looking to do. Look at what Uber did. They are not a car company. They're not a taxi service. They have a robust digital platform. We are in the age of disruption. Start looking at ways to disrupt the normal workflow or certain things that can now be digitized, and not just digitized, but they can be quantifiable. Like, what can I do to create a opportunity for myself that if I invest $5, it's very simple to see I'm going to get $15 back. Now, that's over time. Most digital marketers, I'm sure Andrew can attest to this, that you make an investment. There's a reason why you do organic marketing and then what you call paid ads, where you don't just blindly throw that out there. However, any digital marketer worth his salt will tell you they're going to have to make an investment of several $1,000s in a certain way. Once you've done what Gary just talked about, you've done your research, you've done your brand identity, you're ready to launch. Now you're starting to become visible. And now we're going to put visible dollars out there to get a visible result. And that is some of the things that I do. From my standpoint, I take people through a framework I call the BRAVE framework. That's brand identity, that's research, that's very important. Then you get into the aesthetics, and then you get into the visibility, and then the evaluation. You're going to have to do this over and over again. So those are my 2 cents.
Yeah,
And Grant, I love what you said. I'm going to come right to you, Andrew. I love what you said. And I want to also add in accountability factors. Now, we as branding and marketing specialists, the companies that we are producing any brand for, they're going to want to hold us accountable. But guess what I've seen, Grant? If we are not holding the media houses accountable to give us predictable outcome, we have a challenge. Now, hear what happened, and you're right with what you said. Social media across platform, you can measure. There's something that we call defining your advertising goal for measure advertising results. You can measure it. But I'm seeing traditional media like radio and television and newspaper, they don't have that kind of database that allow professionals like yourself to measure performance. And that's a major accountability factor loop. So I love what you would have said. Andrew.
Yeah, no, that was the point that Graham mentioned, the thousands of dollars. Yeah, and sometimes a lot of people don't have the ability to invest that kind of money, especially when they're starting up, and that's where maybe Paul services could be beneficial. Now, if that's not even the case, what's more important than that, and I know Graham will agree with this, it's not, everyone has a different starting point, and for me, it's not even about the project size, it's more about the expectations aligned with it. And I realized and I found that there is a gap in the education for that, because sometimes people expect like so many leads and opportunities coming through just one platform. I mean, that's not really realistic all the time. Like you have to look at there's several factors to determine that, but that's where everyone has to be educated on marketing. They have to know the ups and downs in it. They have to know the analysis part. They have to know the results part. They have to know what are results, what are even quantified as results. Is it return? Is it exposure? Is it views? All these things come into account. So I really truly believe there is a gap in that education spot. So I mean, at least I'm trying to help people by giving these kind of classes. I mean, I hope obviously I can do this to bigger groups, but I do notice that the gap is there, and it's your expectations at the end of the day are the most important, no matter how small of a marketing journey you're starting or how big of it is, you're starting. So I just wanted to add to that point.
No, good
Yeah.
points. Good points.
Yeah. Grant made a number of points early on. I think he would have mentioned that um, the cost associated with advertising perhaps is underestimated. I also want to add to that. I think that the cost for doing business is underestimated. And I think that many rising stars, perhaps one of the reasons that they fail is because they underestimate the full cost of doing
I
business.
agree. Yeah.
Perhaps something for us to do as time progresses is to really help them to understand what is, medium, low, and high budgetary allocation to consider when moving to business, when getting into business and want to drive the success of your business. And one of the things that I keep saying is that when we take away branding and marketing, branding and marketing is like the oxygen, is the brain, is the everything of a business. If you take that away, you're doomed before you say Mark said go.
Yeah.
Okay.
100.
Yeah. All right. What I want to do, I want to ask each party perhaps to make a comment on anything that you want to talk about, just taking into consideration that I might not have asked you any particular question. Is there anything that you want to share in terms of branding and marketing that you know is relevant to our audience base?
Yeah, I just want go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add one more point about the personal brand, which I forgot. And Gary, this push and pull thing that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when everyone starts their business, I think what people do is they do a lot of outreach, right? They do a lot of efforts of pushing and going out there to call, door knock, network, and put everything out there on your end, right? But at the end of the day, when you start building a personal brand, when you become an influence in your industry, you're actually doing the one thing that we all wish, which is, Monday through Saturday or Monday through Sunday, you're doing whatever you want. And the cool thing is opportunities are coming to you now. People are coming to you. It's the very opposite. For us to get there, a personal brand is a must. Like, you have to have that for you to even build for you to have such a free lifestyle and know that, oh, I don't even have to worry about working things. I'm just growing as people are coming because they love the way my profile looks and they know I'm providing value, right? So I think that should be like the biggest motivator for us to why someone should even build a personal brand in the first place, even though it takes a lot of efforts.
I 100% agree with you, Andrew. You have said it, and I've witnessed it. Is that, as someone who's been in account management and sales for as long as I have, you're always outreach. You're always, sending something out. It is so cool when somebody calls you up. So cool when somebody sends you an email, so they want to connect with you on social media. They're like, man, I like what you're doing. I want to know more about what you're doing. This is the power of personal branding, that people are seeking you out because you have become a thought leader in your field. You're known as now the expert. Someone else is having conversations. Who do I talk to about branding and marketing? Oh, you need to talk to Grant. You need to talk to Andrew. You need to talk to Gary. I need finance. You need to talk to Paul. Why? Because someone else is doing the selling for you.
Exactly. Yep.
That's beautiful. Now all you got to do is do what you do. You are the expert in your field. You've just got to tell that story. Now, one thing I would say, you said, what's the one thing I think we haven't said? There's a formula to this whole thing. Branding is really, for me, the way I look at it, that's the creation. That's the internal work you have to do to create whatever branding asset that you're going to have before anybody even sees it, right? The next thing you're going to have to do is public relations. Public relations is so important. When people think about PR, they're thinking about, the big Fortune 500 companies, they spend a ton of money on public relations because the court of public opinion they're going to render a verdict against you daily. And if you haven't put the information out there to where that sways that jury one way or the other. The jury is out on Gary Thompson. What is it? Who is he in the court of public opinion? What have you done around public relations is not what you're putting out, is what other people are putting out about you. Important. And then your marketing starts to have traction and starts to have power. And all that credibility starts to grow. And then when you come to someone like Paul, I need money, he's like, how much? Because he sees the value that you have in the market.
I agree with that.
Awesome.
And also I think when you have the fact that when the leads are coming to you, it gives you an advantage in the sales process because you're now in control. Now you are in control of your negotiation. You are in control of the contract write-up because in the beginning it used to be them, and it's very hard to for them to have you give you control. But when they come to you, you are the boss and you're able to direct them in your honestly in any way you would like.
Wow, that is powerful. Powerful. Paul, your take?
Yeah, I want to throw something out there that Gary and Andrew said, and they inspired me with this earlier. They got me going with this. Okay. In journalism, and I'm not a journalist, I just remember this I learned it somewhere in the past. Who, what, why, when, where, and how. That tells the story. Relating that to personal branding and marketing, it's who, what, why, and how. Who is who you are. What is what you do. Why, a couple of things on there. Why you do it and why you do it better and why they should work with you. And then the how is, well, that's the how. Where is everywhere. When is always now. Let's do this now. Okay. In the past 80s, 90s, early 2000s, right, there were commercials and there was newspaper. Grant, Andrew, tell me what your thoughts are on this, but I don't, there were definitely fewer, if not few, people doing personal branding back then. You had everything was bland, black and white. It's a commercial. You hear it on the radio, but you'd have that one blip in the radar of the guy selling with a used car lot with the cowboy hat on, doing crazy things. That was personal branding.
Sure.
And everybody remembers that guy, knows that guy, or the guy selling appliance. I mean, just the crazy marketers. Well, the crazy marketers weren't crazy. They were smart. They knew what was going on. Okay. Unrelated, but branding, you mentioned Oprah. If you jokingly say this, because I'll throw this. This is funny at the right time, at the right place all the time. You've got a brand new car. You've got it. Like that was Oprah with the books. Everybody's got a book underneath their thing. You've got a book and you've got a book, right? You don't even have to say your name. You know where it came from.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's it. That's my thoughts.
No, what you said there is so important because you're memorable, and you put something together. No one, everybody can do it. They can say it, but everybody knows where it ties back to the originator of it. We have something now that we've never had before. The tool sets are at your fingertips. Before you had to go to the radio station and spend a ton of money and try to get a spot there to talk about your brand, your service, your new concert coming out, whatever it might be. You had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to try to get on television. Wow, you're on television. Just the fact you're on television will probably get somebody's attention because there wasn't a lot. Now, guess what? We're on TV right now, right? Right this second.
Yeah,
right? That was never available. So now people need to understand that is no longer a barrier. It used to be, I don't have enough money to advertise. I'm advertising right now. It didn't cost me anything, right? Except my time, right? Right? And you didn't have the right venue. You couldn't afford it. I mean, you just, there's so many other things. So the tide has changed, and that now you can market yourself. As a matter of fact, it's incumbent upon you to market yourself. And it doesn't mean you're always in business. It could be from a career standpoint. How are you going to get that next promotion? How are you going to stand out? I want to know you as a thought leader, as a lawyer. I want to know you who's the thought leader when it comes to any kind of corporate leadership. How have you manifested that? Let me see that. Don't just talk about it. Let me see that. So that the opportunity is in front of us to do so. but you need to take a look at yourself, what you want to accomplish with your brand, and how you're going to get there. I also will say this. There's certain things you can do yourself, and then you'll come to that point in the road. You will need a professional to help you. You will need a coach to help you. You need to know how to do certain things that you're not aware of, right? The greatest athletes in the world have coaches. The greatest corporate leaders in the world have coaches. You will need a coach at a point that you'll get to. Andrew kind of alluded to it, because you're not always aware of everything. You're very good in your lane. You know a lot more than I do. But when it comes to branding, marketing yourself, creating sales in complex environments that are very highly competitive, that's when you look for someone like myself to invest in and to get a greater ROI out. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and waste it and get discouraged. I'm sure Andrew could speak to that.
Great. Um, a lot of great points that was tabled. But what I will do, I identify items that I wanted us to go into today. You know, we don't have enough time to go into, but we're going to spread it out perhaps over the next few weeks, where we can look perhaps at corporate branding, marketing, and sales. But I just want us to touch a little bit today on sales before I come around for closing remarks. Um, I do believe that sales is vital for any business to grow. But when I do the research, I recognize that the retention rate in sales among sales personnel, uh, it is something of concern. Many persons going into sale today, they do not stay very long in that field. And I do believe there are reasons for that. Andrew earlier on hinted on the push and pull factors of sale. I think most of those persons who are walking away from sale, they are not trained in personal branding. Because I'm certain if they were trained in personal branding, they would have really enjoyed the whole essence of what it really is, right? Because in this case, you are now trained how to pull and not only to push in your sales effort.
Right.
And these are things that I want us to go deep into over the next few weeks to really help the audience to understand this. And Grant is right. Grant is right. You need professional input here. Professional input, meaning training, mentorship, coaching, sponsorship. It can really help you to fast track the growth of your business. All right. So these people that are talking to you today, Grant, Andrew, Paul, myself, is years of experiences being wrapped into this conversation. Grant, he represents Fortune 500 companies. I mean, he would not have, elevated to this status had he not been doing a good job. And you have the expertise in the community that can help you. So I want to encourage you, reach out to us if you need to get into contact with Grant, and we'll happily create that for you. If you need access to capital to move your business forward, again, I want you to reach out to us. We have Paul. He has multiple financial instruments. Of course, we have other financial experts with us. So if Paul's portfolio may not be able to help you to access the capital for you to get into branding and marketing, we can definitely engage with other financial expert that's going to may be able to help you with that. We have Andrew, a digital marketing specialist. Definitely, if you have a business and you are not thinking digital marketing, you're leaving not just a slice of cake on the table. Perhaps you're leaving more than half of that pie on the table. And you're in business to make an impact with people by satisfying their needs, wants, and expectation, and cash flow optimizing. So with that being said, my friends, I must say we had an enjoyable conversation here today. We are going to do this again next week. But just before we go, I would love to have your closing remarks. I'm going to start with Andrew, then I'm going to come to Paul, and then I'm going to come to the Fortune 500 representative here today. Andrew.
Yeah, great conversation we had today. I think it's great to have another one on board who's very aligned with marketing and branding, and
Yeah.
coming from someone who's been work, for you, Grant, like you have so much experience in those fields. It just keeps emphasizing the point. I'm just a young kid who talks about all this, but Grant
No, I
just
would tell him
you
that
have,
You're
he's
he
a
has so
dog
21.
much.
trapped in a kid body. So don't undersell yourself, right?
No, he's got more experience than my age, so I would also
Okay.
take that into account. But I think
All
it
right.
was a great conversation to hit certain points, and
Definitely.
the comfort point is that even if you don't have the money, that's not a problem anymore, right?
Mhm.
We have someone here that can assist in providing the needed funds to actually grow the business. So it's almost as if, what are you waiting for? That's the only question now.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes. On that point with money, just before you go, Paul, once you come to us, we will leave no stone unturned to really help you to access the capital that you need to grow and scale. There's creative financing, and Paul hinted on that. There are a number of things that we can do as experts to help you with the funds to grow and scale. Paul, all to you now.
I just want to say, Andrew, stop it, man. We already determined this last week. Remember, we said you're 21, but you got and we determined this through laboratory testing of like a 58-year-old genius. So come
Paul
on.
has scientific proof. Okay.
All right, all right. My closing comments would be branding is important. Personal branding is important. Obviously, there's no way around it. And like everybody said, you got a phone in your hand. That's all you need. You need more than that, but that works. That works. You need more than that. You need experts, but that can come in a little bit. You want to work towards that. You want to start off that right away. But if you can't, then just work towards it with your phone. Pick up the phone. You don't got to look pretty. You just got to be genuine. Speak what you do. Being genuine is a personal brand. If you're likable, that's the very beginning right there. So branding is super important. Every aspect of a business is important. You can have the best branding, and if you drive those customers to your sales team and they're not personally branded or they don't act like they are, then I mean, are you going to make the sale? Maybe. The closing ratios are low. A killer salesperson is doing 40, 50%, a legend. A average salesperson is 1 out of 4, 25% closing ratio. And then if you're not, it's lower than that. So every single aspect of business is important. Fine tune every department all the time. Do your best, and you can do it. You're approved. You can do this. It's not hard. You can make a lot of money for your family. You can build a business. You can build a legacy. You can't pass a job to your kids, and you won't make enough money with a job to give your kids what you want to give them. So you can do so much more. Go for it. Do it. We're here to help you. And that's it.
All right. All right. Thanks for that share, Paul. But just before I go across to Grant, can you tell us a little bit about the BFC initiative?
Definitely. Love to talk about that. Glad you asked. Okay. 100 business finance consultants. If you want to do it, get a hold of Gary. Send him a direct message. Send me a direct message. Email me, Paul at Patriot BFC. Make sure you say you want to be a BFC. You heard about it on this show. What does that mean? Business finance consultant. Okay. 100 professionals. We will pour everything into you. Full training, full support. Full support means you can call me at 9, 10 o'clock at night. If you got a customer and they want to talk now, I want to talk to them now with you. I'm talking about going at 8,000 RPMs. That's what I'm talking about. We'll give you full training, full support, turn you into a sales professional, and you can offer money to business owners. You can offer equipment financing, real estate financing, cash flow products, capital raises for growth capital for established businesses with good financials or startups. And if you like industrial hemp fiber, I will teach you on that. That's a brand new market. We are building the industrial hemp fiber industry. And if you join us as a business finance consultant, you can build it with us. Money that you can make, it's a lot. It's not a job, it's a career. And it's not a job, it's a partnership. You'd be a 1099 contractor. So it's not a job. You don't want a job. You want to be you want to be a business owner or an investor. But that usually starts with being self-employed. That's employee, self-employed, like Robert Kiyosaki says. You want to work your way up that ladder. That's what we're here to help you do. That's what we want to help you do. So let's do it together.
All right, thanks for that share. And Paul, now I'm going to come to the big man in the house, and this is Grant.
If Rick Flair was here, he'd say, "Woo!"
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm going to come to Grant. We have to give him his flowers, right? He has worked with Fortune 500 companies, and we have to acknowledge that. Grant, what is your closing remarks, my friend?
First, thank you so much for having me. This is personal branding in action. It's not like I reached out to Gary and said, "Gary, put me on your show." No, he reached out to me. He saw some of the things that I was doing. He was able to do his research. He said, "Grant would be a great fit." This is personal branding in action, right? So you're talking about that push pull. This is how this happens. But he's bringing me up because of my expertise. And because I showcased my expertise, that I made it visible, he can then see that and then talk to me and like, wow, yes, he is the real deal. That's the other thing about personal branding. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be the real deal. You can't sit up there and say you're this and you're that. No, you've got to be the real deal. This is an era that we are in now. I have been in information technology for 25 years. That's how got me exposure to a lot of Fortune 500 companies, lots of different tech companies throughout the US all the time. Here's the deal. Here's a tidbit of information I want to tell everybody. We are moving away from the information technology world. We are in the intelligent technology world. You need to manifest your intelligence. That is going to be the differentiator as we go into what we call the content creation economy. This is where the money is. This is where you're going to be. This is when you've got a 21-year-old on this call named Andrew who has so much expertise in his endeavor that I would take him before anyone who's been in marketing the last 20 years. I'm going to Andrew. You know why? Because he's on the pulse of what's happening now. This is what's going on. We are changing. Our environment and economy is changing. You must become more intelligent about who you are, what you do, why it's important, and have a movement about you. What is your emotional connection to what you're doing and why you're doing it? What's the story behind it? Because if you can tell that story and tell it with authenticity and have people buy into that, no matter what you're doing and what you're selling, they're always going to remember you. They're always going to remember you, and that your IP, what I mean by IP, your intellectual property. And I'm going to go back to something that Paul said about, your machinery, your input. We're in a world now that your intellectual property is worth money. Your data is worth a lot of money to Facebook, a ton of money to TikTok, all kinds of money to LinkedIn and Twitter and all these. Data is the new money. Get on board, make your data valuable. That's how I would leave your audience.
I love that. And I love that you said data is the new currency. You're perfectly correct. I mean, that means so much. You can hear this. We have the big data that we call it. And what do you think these guys do? Collect data, package data, sell data. Big money. Simple as that. So I really love that. We're going to go deeper and deeper into this over the next few weeks. Grant, I want to thank you for taking time out for being with us today. It has been a blessing to us. I know that, and I'm certain that it has also been a blessing to the audience that are listening to this program across the world and those who will be listening to the replay. I also want to thank my partner, Paul. He's always here to talk about finance. And of course, if you're in business and you need access to capital, Andrew would have said it. Capital is no longer the problem. We're going to help you to access the capital, whether it be debt, equity, credit, creative financing. We're going to help you access those capital. And Andrew, I also want to thank you. And as Grant would have said, young but extremely talented. And I wish we had more young people who are extremely focused the way that you are. The world would have definitely been a much better place. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And I want to say thanks to the audience for taking time out to be with us today. It has been a pleasure having you on the High Net Worth Investors Guide. And do remember, share this information with your friend, and we will do this again next week Saturday at 2 p.m. EST. See you guys and soon.